Okay, welcome to Algebra. Today we're going to continue our lesson on 7.1 and we're going to ask a question. Once we've actually simplified the expression, how can we evaluate that expression for a given value of a variable? So we're going to continue our lesson. We had Chuck Norris yesterday and hopefully you enjoyed the little car clip. Today we're also going to talk about the Chuck Norris, but it's going to be in context. Once you've simplified it, how are we going to go ahead and evaluate that expression? So we're going to go ahead, this is from page 475, number 11. We're going to evaluate the expression when x is 2, y is negative 3, and z is negative 5. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the Chuck Norris thing. I'm going to try to simplify this down before I get started. Now, with the Chuck Norris, I'm going to make this into a two-story house. First, I'm going to look at each individual term. The y has been normal, so Chuck Norris leaves him alone. The opposite of x, though, now it's this negative that makes him negative. That just stays. Again, Chuck Norris isn't going to kick somebody for being grumpy. It's when they're being negative to his girlfriends, the big difference between those. So because of this negative here, this is going to be booted down, so it's going to be the opposite of x. Keep that in parentheses, very important, to the positive fourth. And now we're ready to work. So they're still grumpy, but they are positive towards Chuck Norris, and that's what we're caring about here. Now that we have this in a simplified form, now we want to evaluate. So it's just like I'm buying something. I take something and, if it's, I'm buying some water. So literally I grab the water off the shelf, I have the money, I give them, instead of the water, I take the water, I give them money. It's the same exact thing here. We're going to evaluate. Evaluate means you replace the value of the variable and go ahead and simplify it from there. Simplify meaning order of operations. So we're going to take these, we're going to take, instead of the x, we're going to put a 2 in there. Anytime that you replace the value of the variable and you evaluate it, you need to put that in parentheses. And it may make it messy, but it is actually very important to do. So the y, instead of putting the y, I'm going to put a parentheses, and I'm going to put a negative 3 in its place, negative 3 to the second. This is the opposite of x is 2. Now remember, we have parentheses also outside of this, all to the fourth. And the question is, when you have parentheses, does it change the value? Will it change the order of operations if I remove these parentheses? If you look at the top one in the numerator, negative 3 to the second power, we're just going to photocopy this. We'll talk about this more later. We're just going to photocopy that. There's going to be 2 negative 3's inside. Probably the simplest way to look at it. Now, the way that this is set up here, these parentheses here are not necessary, these blue ones. The opposite of 2, notice we don't take to the fourth power. These red parentheses, there's going to be 4 of the red ones. Okay, this is just saying the opposite of the blue. So what's the opposite of 2? Well, it's negative 2. So really you could just think of this as negative 2. Now I'm going to take what's inside this and I'm going to make 4 photocopies of that negative 2. Alright, now do you absolutely have to do this? No, but it's good conceptually for us to understand how many negatives are there and exactly what's going on in the process. Now, I like to just count up all the negatives. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives altogether. That means if there's an even number of negatives that we're going to end up with a positive. So our whole response should be positive. No negatives involved at all. Each pair, they will pair up. So negative times negative, negative times negative. Each pair will give you a positive. So we end up with 3 times 3 in the top is 9. 2 times 2, 4, times 2, 8, times 2, 16. So this is going to be 9/16. So again, the entire process, you're going to simplify it first, do a little Chuck Norris, wah! And then we're going to go through and evaluate, replace all those the values of the variables in, and go ahead and work down the problem. Simplify it using the order of operations. Let's try one more. Okay, in this case we have the sort of the two-story Chuck Norris house already. We have the numerator and the denominator ready to go. So first I'm going to simplify it. First look for any 0 exponents, exponents of 0. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1, unless you have something like this, and that would be -1. If there's a negative that's not in parentheses, then that would be -1. Otherwise, everything to the 0 power is 1. So we're going to go ahead and simplify. I notice right away that the z, this negative here, the negative to his girl, to Chuck Norris's girl, can't have that. So he's going to be booted up, uppercut right through the roof, and we have z to the first now on the top, and the y squared, he's been cool to Chuck Norris's girl, so he's not going anywhere. Now we're actually going to take this, we're going to evaluate it. This is 2 times, just replace the 2. Again, I have the water, see water on shelf, take the water, give them the money. So you're literally just replacing it, just like you're buying something in the store. So 2 times 2 times the z is -5, and that's to the first power, so you don't have to write that. And in fact, you notice I put the multiplication symbol here. I could put the multiplication symbol here. It's not necessary, but if you like the way that looks, that's fine. Y, I'm going to put in parentheses, y is -3 squared. And now it's pretty simple. You could say that there's 2 of these negatives, or you could just literally copy it out. Makes it pretty easy if you do actually copy it out. -3 times -3. And now I just count the negatives. 1, 2, 3 negatives. So the entire thing is going to be negative. 2 times 2 is 4, times 5 is 20, and 3 times 3 is 9. So you have 2 choices. You could either leave it as -29ths, or you could go ahead, 9 goes into 20 twice with 2 remainder, and -2 and 2/9. Either of those would be acceptable. Thank you so much, and this is your algebra for today.